Namaste. All right, this is an exercise that I use quite a bit with people, either individuals or with couples, that I find really useful. And so it's called the 5 losing agendas. And so the concept is figuring out what your losing agenda is, and then that's going to be a part of what would be good for you to work on. So everyone has basic wants and needs, right? And so the basic want and the need that you are having is totally legitimate. However, it becomes a losing agenda or strategy when we go back to the way we learned how to get our needs met in childhood. So fundamentally, growing up in your family of origin, you either witness somebody getting their needs met in this way, or you had to adapt to the family system and you learned it worked. You got your needs met this way. And that is truly what you needed to do in order to grow up in this family. It was something that you needed in order to survive, to get your needs met. But in adulthood, when we go from prefrontal cortex, reasonable thinking, to limbic system, we go back to that age regressed place. And when we are functioning out of that, what I would call adaptive child, that young part of ourselves, because we're in high emotion, low reasoning, it becomes a losing agenda. So just knowing yourself and knowing what your losing agenda is important, and your partners too. So the truth is we do all of these to some varying degree. However, there's usually one or two we do more than the others. And just to be aware when you go into that state. And then of course, the goal is to do the opposite, which I will explain. Okay, so 5 losing agendas. So one is, again, this triggered knee-jerk reaction, the whoosh comes up, autonomic response in the body, and we either go into being right, control, unbridled self-expression, passive-aggressive, or withdrawal. And I'll explain each one of those. So being right is the one where your back goes up, you are really attached to your way. It's a self-righteous indignation. You can't see anyone else's point of view. You're like a little fundamentalist as far as it's your way or the highway kind of thing. And so the tricky thing about being right is sometimes you're right. But what we are shooting for is democracy and a safe environment to be able to talk in your intimate relationships. So when somebody goes one up on somebody else, it is going to shut down the conversation for the other person. So we are looking for this ability to have an opinion, stick to your opinion, but also be willing, creating a little space for at least hearing the other person's point of view, sincerely cultivating curiosity, and being open to being changed, being open to new information. And if you are able to do that and you still disagree, it's okay to disagree, but it's when we come off really intense and really strong that it just shuts the whole conversation down, and it is a losing agenda. You might get what you want in the moment. Somebody might shut up or just say yes, but ultimately, long-term, bigger picture, you're not getting what you want because you don't have a partner who feels as validated and can express their wants and needs. So being right is one. And again, either we learned it or we developed that skill growing up. Second one is control. So control is either overt control, telling another grown-up person what they should be thinking, feeling, or doing, or, by the way, you're being oversensitive, which is basically telling someone that they should not be feeling the way they're feeling. Um, so nobody likes to be told what to do unless it's a hierarchical relationship, parent to a child. But even that, we really do need to let our kids express some of their thoughts and feelings. We ultimately have the final decision. But when it's especially an equal relationship, it is that ability to, again, equality, democracy is what we're going for. Have each person being able to express themselves. So overt control, very similar to being right. Covert control is more you working behind the scenes, manipulating, using some sort of manipulative strategy to basically get other people to do what you want without thinking what's best for the family or the coupleship. Again, it's really meeting your own needs. So that could be guilt tripping to, acting like you never heard what the other person wanted or was saying. So therefore, you just kind of proceed and do what you want to do. So that could be more covert control. So first one's being right. Second one is control, overt or covert. Third one is unbridled self-expression. So that is, if I feel something, if I am having a trauma trigger, that I give myself full permission to vent instantaneously. The whoosh comes up and I feel like I am entitled because you have hurt me. Now I'm going to hurt you. Or just that, you can't control that feeling. Sometimes people say I just can't control it, kind of thing. Which maybe they haven't, really tried to practice. But when that whoosh feeling comes up, that person just dumps it without giving some thought to how is this landing on the person? How is this going to affect the relationship? So those three go together oftentimes. The fourth one is passive aggressive. And so while you've heard, that term, the way I like to say it is, if someone makes me mad and I know that I'm mad, I am very consciously going to get back at that person. I would just call that retaliation. It's very conscious. It's very premeditated. But when it's passive aggressive, somebody makes me mad and then I deny it to myself. I shouldn't feel this way. I should be more mature. I don't want to have a conflict. And that denial process, stuffing it, ultimately either then somebody either blows or it comes out sideways, being late, a little snarky, a little vindictive in some way in your tone. So that's what I would call passive aggressive. And then the last one is withdrawal. So withdrawal is either angry withdrawal, which is more like stonewalling, refuse to talk, putting out a stink, slamming doors, that kind of thing. Or it could be hopeless, defeated withdrawal, which is more refuse to talk anymore. Just shutting down and stop participating in the relationship and the problem solving part of the relationship. So those are the 5 losing agendas. Give some thought to which ones you have a tendency to do when you're when you're the most upset. Of course, it's not when we're calm and cool and collected. It's when we're the most stressed. And then, so if you are a being right person, then it is noticing what those triggers are when you feel that in your body, and very much on purpose, starting to either breathe, button your lips and just decide, or maybe say, I'm feeling too triggered right now. I'm going to say something I regret. Give me a couple minutes. But it is not speaking in that moment. It is knowing that and figuring out what that basic need is and making a request around that, as opposed to just dumping it. So that would be for the being right person, and pretty much the same thing around control and around covert control. just having self-examining when you find yourself doing those kinds of things. It is going to be using a technique called the feedback wheel, which I do have another video that's already on my YouTube channel about the feedback wheel. That is ultimately what you want. You want to have some structure around asking for what you want, as opposed to being in complaint. It is figuring out what your basic wants and needs are, and then being able to articulate that in a step-by-step process. It's a little bit longer, but ultimately it's faster, because if you just dump it and then you're in a fight for a half a day or 2 days, it would be worth your time of thinking through the feedback wheel and really saying that in a more intentional way. And then passive aggressive and withdrawal, those people have a tendency, again, to disengage. So that person really needs to stay engaged in the process. Again, use the feedback wheel. So if you are nursing, cursing, and rehearsing something in your mind, I would say 2 or 3 different times. You can't get rid of it. You try to distract yourself, but it keeps coming back. I would say that's probably a signal to use the feedback wheel. So I hope that helps, knowing what your losing agenda is, and then, or are, maybe it's, more than one, and then really on purpose trying to do the opposite. That would be something that will help you to heal faster, again, whether together or apart. I hope that helps. Namaste.